I've been working heads down on this brand for almost 2.5 to 3 months now. And in the course of these 3 months, I have pivoted twice. I've made a million mistakes. That's probably exaggerating, but I've made so many mistakes as a first time founder, but I would not have it any other way. And the reason being is because I have learned through this process of how safe I have been playing my entire life. And that's not to say that life isn't hard. It's just that everything that has happened in my life chronologically has happened in a way where it feels like I need to put in a little bit of effort, but it has never felt like an uphill grind like it has been for me now, trying to build this brand from the ground up by myself. And I think it's just a good reminder that if you don't go out of your comfort zone and go after what you really want, that's you playing small. But if you step out of that comfort zone and you start going after the things that you truly want to go after, you're going to start to realize that all the good things in life are at the other side of you trying. And that's you attempting, you doing your best to show up every single day and tackle the goals that you have for yourself, to go and do the things even when you don't feel motivated, even when the weather is shit and you woke up and you didn't have a good night's rest. I learned all of this very quickly. It was all condensed in the last 2.5 months, but there were definitely days where I didn't feel the motivation to keep going. I was surrounded by no one but myself at home. And a lot of the times I felt a little bit hopeless. It was like, Terry, remind me, why are you trying to start a business again in the activewear space when there's already such a saturated market? You see, it seems like everybody online these days are building a fashion brand. But at the end of the day, I don't want to just build a fashion brand. That is not my goal. It has never been a dream of mine to build a fashion brand. Actually, it has always been a dream of mine to start a business that actually, does some good in the world. And I think I finally found this intersection between, putting out a physical product that is not only good for you, good for me. It's something that I would want to wear more often on my body as someone who is very active and lives a very active lifestyle. But at the same time, it's like a product that could actually make for a healthier planet. And I think I found that sweet spot. And I know that it's a very grand vision to just completely go against the grain of all of the activewear brands that we're used to. Today, over 90% of our activewear, every single piece of clothing in your closet, and especially for women, think about the sports bras and leggings that you're wearing to your workouts. 90% of that is made of synthetic material. And our fabrics coming from most of Lululemon and the bigger retail brands, our dry fit clothes from Nike, the fabrics are coming from crude oil. And so you can imagine it's made up of plastic that is chemically processed into these tight filaments that are now more known as nylon and polyester. Nylon is the brand name for a polyamide, which is polyester. But at the end of the day, if we don't start looking at the labels and reading what's in the label, then we're not actually doing the due diligence of understanding what we're putting up against our bodies, especially in the times where we're sweating the most, myself included. 90% of my entire activewear closet is still made of synthetics. It's made of nylon, polyester, and a little bit of some are using even more elastane for stretch. And that's kind of what creates that stretchy compression fabric. And one thing that I've learned that really goes a long way when you're shopping is making sure that even if you can't buy fully natural right now, at the very least, look for brands on Amazon or wherever you shop that are creating products that are Oeko-Tex certified. And so what that means is making sure that they pass their manufacturing and cut and sew process where they are not using any harmful chemicals, finishes. So even if you end up buying a recycled polyester top or jacket or outfit, just know that they don't have those chemical finishes that could be detrimental to your health. For me personally, I've struggled with fungal acne and fungal bacterial infection growing up in Hong Kong. Whenever my skin is living in a very hot and humid place, I will just sweat a lot. And when you plaster plastics on your body, it actually amplifies that for me. And I end up breaking out in a fungal breakout on my skin. And I actually had such a bad breakout a few years ago that I can still see the remnants of the scarring from it. And so that is a bit of reason of why I care about what touches my body. But as somebody who is in their early 30s, I'm also at the point in my life where I care about my health more than I have ever before. I care about my chances of having children that are just as healthy as I can possibly make it so. And so these are the reasons why I'm building Furva, a natural next to skin activewear brand. And most importantly, we're starting from the inside out. So I want to care about the products that are touching our skins, the parts of our skins that are the most permeable, most absorbent to these type of harmful chemicals and plastics. And I want to educate you guys. I want to educate the world. I want to educate as many women as possible in my network that there is a better way. Slowly swap out your synthetics with something more natural, something more clean. And that's what I'm doing myself right now. I am throwing out and donating a lot of items. Unfortunately, those are textile waste that we're adding to this planet. But instead, I encourage you guys to do the approach where if you buy one new piece of clean item or a low tox activewear item, then you can then throw out or donate another piece that you previously owned so that someone else can love it. And if you think that it is just truly so harmful for the planet, you can also throw it away, which some of my pieces that I have previously bought from Shein, I'm not even donating those items. I am literally throwing it in the trash can. One thing that also works really well if you're an active person is shopping base layers that are good for your skin and then keeping the synthetics that are more of the shells and the outerwear. Performance and natural don't sit very well together. That there's always going to be trade-offs between form and function, and that there is no perfect product today that you could create. But what you can do is focus on at least a hybrid approach. And that's essentially what I'm creating with Furva, with my brand. But I'm also keeping my shells, the Gore-Tex Arc'teryx jackets, the shells that I've bought previously from different brands. I'm not throwing those out. They're very expensive. But I also know that if there's any UV coating on them, I know for a fact that it's probably not the best for my skin. But I will just do my best to not have that be the only and first layer that's touching my skin. Now that I'm almost 3 months really deep into building this brand and learning as I go, I wanted to share some lessons that I learned as a first-time founder in the textile space. Maybe this is just interesting for you to watch, or perhaps you're also in the ideation and you're planning to start your own fashion or apparel business. These are some things that really helped me as I've been navigating some of the failures that I've had. And funny thing is, before trying to start this business, it was very hard for me to think about failures that I've had. I talked to my coach a few months ago and he asked me, what failures have I had in my lifetime? And it was so hard to come up with them. And he laughed because he was literally saying, if you asked me the same question, I could open up an entire book of failures over the last years. And I could tell you so many failures that I've had and all the lessons that I've learned along the way. So I think this is a really good opportunity. I documented some of the failures that I made as a first-time founder and what I learned in the process. And I've already have a few here. The first one is maybe a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs will always tell you that it's important to create a business that you're passionate about. And while I agree with that, it's just as important as it is to find your product market fit. And one of the best ways to do that, and one of the most valuable ways you can spend your time as somebody that is about to launch a business, is not actually just to sit and daydream and journal and ideate about what you're going to launch and create your social media page. Actually, it is to get as much feedback as possible from the market, from your community and your friends. And so I knew this deep down, and I feel like so many people in my network have told me to do this, but I was a little bit blindsided in the beginning of my journey building Furva based on a problem that I was trying to solve myself. And so when I was in Patagonia, I backpacked and I was living on a multi-day trek with minimal showers and I was sweating a lot. And I felt that I really hated wearing the synthetic buff or a neck gaiter that I purchased because it didn't wick sweat very well. But not only that, it also became very stinky after a few days. And I didn't love the look of the tube that you would just pull over your head. It was not stylish. It was not cute. And so I was trying to create this first neck gaiter bandana product for this very use case without talking to enough people. And so I would really recommend you to get feedback as quick as possible and with as many people as possible. I interviewed over 50 people so far to give me some feedback on some early ideas around where the direction of Furva could go. And I tracked everything on a massive Google sheet, and it has helped me surface trends, patterns, and where I should take Furva. And that is something that has been really helpful that I wish I did 2.5 months ago. Another thing that I learned at my first Oregon Functional Fabric Fair. I went into it obviously as a complete noob, and without textile experience, I knew that I wanted to not only understand the supply chain process, but I also wanted to understand the ingredients that went into building a natural fiber brand. I would say that the trip was extremely useful. I left learning so much more than I could have ever imagined. And that is an achievement alone. But also in reflection, I realized that I was focused a little bit too much on just the mills and the ingredients at this first fair. And I didn't build enough vertical manufacturers and those type of relationships at the fair. And I wish in hindsight that I did, because if my brand ends up doing well for the first drop, chances are for future drops, I would want to scale up with a manufacturer that handles more things in-house. So whether that's a vertical mill or a vertical manufacturer. And because I only really got one contact there, which I still need to nurture, I feel like I kind of missed the mark on a critical step in the supply chain. And so if you're going to start your own textile or apparel business, I would highly recommend, yes, it's important to go to these conferences and to learn, but you might want to hold off and just go there with more than the game plan that I did, because at the end of the day, if I came to a functional fabric next week, I would know exactly the type of relationships I want to build. And not only that, it's not building for the first drop. I'm building for future drops, future collections. And on top of that, I would actually have a much better spec of the type of fabric that I'm looking for. Because at the end of the day, because I pivoted twice, I didn't actually talk to the mills asking for the exact fabric that I'm currently looking for now. And in hindsight, navigating that through email is a lot harder than a face-to-face interaction. And those are, two big lessons that I've already learned in the process. I have a few more, but I think with Kylo being here, I'm going to make a part 2 video on the rest of the lessons. Look at him. Look at him. He just wanted attention.